It is your host, E.I. Smith. Today's date is Saturday, July 20th, 2019. The time is 5:21 p.m. and I am in front of the Key building on Hillsborough Boulevard in Deerfield Beach, Florida. I'm going to get some gang stalking caught on camera for you this afternoon. Be looking for synchronized obstruction of movement, which includes vehicular activity, synchronized space crowding, which also includes vehicular activity, an abundance of public service vehicles, and general obstructive gang stalking activity. I'm going to make my way down US 1 south towards Starbucks. Let's go. As you can see, there's a tattered American flag in front of or to the immediate left of the Key building. That's how I feel right now. I wanted to get that flag in the shot for a reason. I have been placed without cause, without warrant, without hearing, and without notification in a draconian, fascist, Nazi, Bolshevik, and Jim Crow operation. Scores of people on foot, bike, cars, what have you, are mobilized in my general direction from all directions, north, east, south, and west, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it includes police. There's some street theater right there. You can't really see it from here, but that is a cannabis news Hummer. It's a Hummer that drives around town advertising a newspaper that reports on the marijuana industry. I see that truck several times a day. It's a black Hummer and it's got green marijuana leaves painted all over it. First public service vehicle, ladies and gentlemen. That cannabis news truck is street theater. This fire rescue truck is street theater. We have synchronized obstruction of movement. Notice how that fire truck came out of the station the very second I passed the station. That's synchronization, ladies and gentlemen. And here's our second And third, public service vehicles, 2 metro buses. So we have a fire truck and 2 metro buses. And here's a guy right here that just fell off his bike. This is street theater. Notice how he just happened to fall off of his bike as I'm walking down the street. That's the thing about being a targeted individual. Big stuff happens around you. Lots of things happen around you.
Wait.
So just as I walked outside, a fire truck and 2 metro buses were present. Then we saw somebody who happened to fall off of his bike just as I was walking down that way. Synchronized obstruction of movement, ladies and gentlemen. Not a word, not a peep out of any U.S. politician. Not a peep out of the U.S. military. Not a peep out of the Department of Justice. Not a peep out of any private security firm. Not a peep out of anybody. You know why? Because gang stalking is an asset to people that have anything that resembles power. If a person gets marked for gang stalking, it's lifelong. It's a lifelong dismantling of that person's life through constant annoyance. The street element of gang stalking is the element that I'm able to document for you now. But there's a workplace mobbing element to gang stalking. And that includes when you go to university. It's not just at work, it's at school. There's an interpersonal relationship destruction element to gang stalking. There is a friendship destruction element to gang stalking. There's an isolation element to gang stalking. When a targeted individual makes a connection of some kind, interpersonal connection, the people that they make that connection with are targeted in their personal lives and at work, just not with the intensity that the targeted individual is targeted with. So in other words, if the targeted individual makes a friend or goes into a romantic relationship with somebody, that other person gets a light dose of what the targeted individual is getting. And oftentimes, it's almost as if the friend or significant other is compelled to do things that make the targeted individual angry, hurt, upset, or confused. confused namely at why this person that the target cares about would do something or say something that would be so dramatically harmful to their relationship. Synchronized space crowding, synchronized vehicular obstruction of movement, idiotic gang stalking. So that's a small glimpse of why targeted individuals' interpersonal relationships are destroyed. Now, what are the reasons a person can be put in into a gang stalking campaign? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but the reason, and I actually just passed Starbucks, I guess that's what happens when you get really passionate about something. Sometimes other things go by the wayside. So I passed Starbucks. I may just keep walking rather than turn around. See, there's Starbucks right down the street there, right next to Publix, or in the same shopping center. But I think I'm going to keep walking on this one. I got 16 minutes of recording time left. Starbucks will still be open later. They don't close till 9:30. So I'm going to keep walking. There's a nice breeze going. I'm enjoying the exercise. And there's plenty of gang stalking to be seen and recorded. I see these a lot too. That's a form of synchronized space crowding when those cars do that. Now, making U-turns in Florida is legal, but I'm starting to see that maneuver in a synchronized fashion. And I'm starting to see it with the same frequency that I see cars darting out in front of me. As I'm walking or approaching to or approaching a crosswalk or a driveway or a parking lot like this AT&T. Now, I don't have any doubt in my mind that there are private security, private investigatory, bounty hunter, bail enforcer, and other private security elements in gang stalking. The more I look into it, and the more I record it, and the more I read about it, it's starting to look like, and here's our fourth public security vehicle. That's a Broward County Sheriff's vehicle. As I've said, ladies and gentlemen, an abundance of public service vehicles in the constant vicinity of the targeted individual is a part of gang stalking, is a hallmark of gang stalking, and it's an indicator of gang stalking. Now, why? Why are there always so many public service vehicles around a targeted individual? It's because there are a lot of private security elements in gang stalking. See, there are countless private security firms in the United States. And not all of them have members of that firm that drive around in marked vehicles that say A, B, and C security services or XYZ security services. Some of these private security firms work with intelligence agencies like the CIA. Some of these private security firms work with the FBI. Some of these private security firms work with the U.S. military. Some of these private security firms work with local police departments. And they drive around in unmarked vehicles, and they have the capacity to mobilize units of spies and stalkers. Now, the public service vehicles could be a kind of a support system to them. Here's some more synchronized space crowding, synchronized obstruction of movement. Notice the very second I get to anything that resembles a crosswalk, a driveway, or a parking lot. That is a crosswalk, a driveway, or a parking lot. There is a car coming right there. That is a synchronized gang stalking tactic meant to obstruct the space of, crowd the space of, obstruct the movement of, and crowd the movement of a targeted individual. And that is vehicular synchronized obstruction of movement. Now, when it comes to some comments I made earlier about how I haven't heard a peep out of anybody, it's because something like this is ugly. Something like this gets to the root of some things. Okay, the entirety of the American system will be exposed forever once gang stalking is exposed, because gang stalking takes a piece of each branch of government, executive, legislative, and judicial, and all branches of government in every state, local, state, and federal. All branches of government, and you see this, they can't help it. Ladies and gentlemen, look at this. They can't help it. It's part of the pattern that they were given as stalkers. Ladies and gentlemen, these are not coincidences. These are derivations. Now, in relation to that comment that I made, I'm starting to think that a good, if not the vast majority of gang stalking is run and overseen by private security firms. There are thousands of them in the United States. And the reason I think that a lot of gang stalking is derived from the actions of private security firms is because there seems to be a lack of knowledge about it in federal law enforcement, in the military, in intelligence agencies. Politicians don't seem to know anything about it, and neither does the president. This is a substantive enough program to where it should be at the forefront of every political conversation being had, and no one's talking about it. So what I think it is, I think it's used by private security firms. I believe it's executed by private security firms in conjunction with local sheriff's departments, because it's easier to keep it secret and hidden the lower down the chain of command it operates from. So for example, if gang stalking is run by private security firms and private investigators and bail enforcers, as opposed to, I got somebody walking behind me here, just out of the blue, that kind of thing. That's how they operate. There's always somebody around you. There's always somebody obstructing you. There's always somebody crowding your space. That's how gang stalking operates, ladies and gentlemen. So anyhow, I imagine that it's easier to gang stalk somebody and keep it secret and hidden and do as much damage to that person's life as possible if you use private security, local sheriff's departments, and private investigators, bail enforcers, bounty hunters, that kind of thing. Because these kinds of law enforcement and semi-law enforcement enterprises, they work undercover a lot of the time, and they can do maximum damage without maximum exposure. If the FBI, the CIA, the U.S. Armed Forces, U.S. politicians, the president, etc., if they were all to jump in on this, it wouldn't stay private for very long. You'd see leak after leak after leak after leak after leak, and the United States would just be totally decimated in terms of its credibility as a democracy after that. So I think the point of gang stalking is to terrorize U.S. citizens as frequently as possible for a number of reasons, so as to, and there's that cannabis truck I was telling you about earlier in the video. This is where it ended up. I see it everywhere. Anyhow, it's obviously street theater. So I imagine that's why it's done with private security and the enterprises I just named. It's because it's easier to do maximum damage with minimum exposure. And the more I witness gang stalking, the more I see it, the more I'm inclined to believe that there are private enterprises involved in this as the major players. And keep in mind too that private security firms these days have all the technology that you could possibly imagine. Some of them are as well equipped as some FBI offices, if not more so. And they're not tied to the same oaths that law enforcement officers are tied to, so they could do more dirt without having to worry about getting written up, etc., etc. And let's not forget the church element too. A lot of these churches are in conjunction with these gang stalking entities. I call them principal gang stalkers. The point being to bully somebody into going to church. That's why they're always around a targeted individual. Everywhere a target looks, there's a Christian around. And just about everybody that's approached me in South Florida in terms of somebody just wanting to talk, synchronized space crowding, again, right as I get to a driveway, there just happens to be a car coming. And notice how that's the only car coming, ladies and gentlemen. There is no other cars coming. It was just that one. Just as I was walking past. That is not a coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. That is a derivation. And, I'm just going to put it out there. I mean, anybody that would use law enforcement or semi-law enforcement resources just to annoy a person all day, every day is a pig. Plain and simple. And if any of those cowards had the nerve to stand and look at me in the eye face to face, I'd tell them that they were pigs right to their face. And really, I'm doing it to their face here because they monitor my social media accounts. Okay, so that's what I think of you, and that's what I think of your cohorts. Now, back to the gang stalking enterprise element of this thing. Yeah, private investigatory firms get millions upon millions of dollars, if not billions, from the taxpayer just to monitor people that might be dangerous, that could be dangerous. And this is how they do it. They do it in a fascist way and basically try and terrorize somebody, and it's not even a corrective program. I mean, they're just terrorizing you just to do it. And I'm not in any capacity looking to allow these worms to get the better of me, so I have to get them on camera. So what are the different ways that a person can get put in a gang stalking campaign? Well, there are a lot of different ways. There are somebody can refer you to gang stalking campaign, to be in a gang stalking campaign. These are the reasons I found online: an inheritance, which I was told back in October of 18 that I have, getting into a messy divorce, being a whistleblower, visiting questionable websites, being a loner, let's see, being very passionate about a political cause, and just making the wrong enemy, which is